How's it going, everyone? Taki here. Processor releases are always my favorite times of the year, and this one is a big one. Today we're going to take a look at the most powerful Android gaming hardware that currently exists. The device on screen features the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, and it is a beast both in CPU and GPU performance. As with the last generation, this will probably be the best total package that you'll see built around this chip, and that comes down to a great screen, a dash of software magic, and built-in active cooling that will allow you to chew through any game or emulator that currently exists on this platform. But before we can look at any of that, we need to get this thing set up. Through the magic of editing, I now have this thing fully set up, and we can now talk about the specs. The Red Magic 9 Pro comes with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor. This is an 8-core chip in a 152 configuration with a prime core clocked at up to 3.3 GHz, and our GPU is an Adreno 750 clocked at a whopping 903 MHz. This model comes with 16 GB of LPDDR5X RAM, 512 GB of UFS 4.0 storage, and a 120Hz 6.8-inch AMOLED display. All of this runs on a 6,500 mAh dual cell battery with the ability to fully recharge in a little over half an hour. I want to quickly talk about the design evolution in the Red Magic series. Obviously, I don't have all of the models that they've released, but these are the best models from the last few generations. These earlier models came with a rounded glass back. They also had a lot of random things written all over them, like the processor name, some specs, and some other stuff that doesn't really do anything. You'll see that they've progressively toned down on some of that stuff as they've gone forward. Starting with the Red Magic 8, they went with this boxy shape, making this more like a normal phone. On the Red Magic 9, they went with almost a completely flat back with no camera bumps. The only bump that they do have is for the LED camera flash. Flipping these around, you'll see that the screen-to-body ratio has improved. The Red Magic 9 and the Red Magic 8 seem to have the same screen and the same overall size, so there's not really an improvement there, but the Red Magic 8 was a big step up from the 6 and the 7. All of this was possible because they moved the camera under the display. On this current version, it is hidden very well, and I only ever see it if I'm trying to find it, but I would still be okay with just removing it altogether. Let's do a quick overview of the software and the new features of the RM9. This time around, we are rocking the Red Magic 9 OS, which is an Android 14 system with some customizations and custom apps on top. If we head over into the RAM menu, you'll see that we can customize the amount of extended RAM that this system has. This extra RAM sits in the UFS storage, but I am just going to disable that completely because 16 GB should be more than enough for everything that I want to do. If we need more RAM for Switch emulation or anything like that, I will come back in here. If we head over into the theme customization, we can look at the new settings that they have for the RGB strip on the back. Right now I have this set to the light blue color with the always on effect applied. This is how it looks. I'll also point out that the RGB lights will strobe in this footage, but they don't do that in real life. This is just caused by the frequency of the light and how it affects the camera. On top of RGB control of the back, we also have control over the fan lights, and this is a cool addition to this phone. There are a lot of options for this, but I opted for just matching the colors between both elements with the light blue always on option applied. The launcher software is almost entirely the same as it was the last time I looked at an RM phone. They still have their waifu mode on this, so if that's something you're into, they've got you covered. Their marketing material states that they've added some new features to this, but I never use it, so I wouldn't be able to notice. The last big thing that we have in this current build is the new addition to the plugin menu. We now have super easy access to the Diablo mode. We could access this on older builds with a workaround, but this is awesome to see that it is now super easy to access this. The Red Magic 9 Pro has a couple of features that make it stand out as a gaming platform, even if you just don't even want to use this as a phone at all. I want to go over some of my favorites. The first is the desktop gaming experience, and this is primarily how I use and test these phones. Right now, I have this set up to mirror my phone screen on an HDMI panel, and this is something that you can do on any phone that this competes with, but this phone has another thing up its sleeve. If you enter into the gaming mode with a connected screen, you can send a desktop screen to your external screen, and this is not common, especially among gaming phones. So as you can see here, we can use a mouse to select apps that we want to launch. I am going to start Genshin Impact. If this game had controller support on Android, we would now be able to play it with a 16:9 video signal, but this game sucks on Android, so we have to map screen controls. Thankfully, this is an easy fix with this platform. All we need to do is just map the controls that we want to use on our keyboard and mouse, and we're good to go. Keyboard and mouse mapping works much better than controller support on this platform, and it opens up a lot more doors for Android games that have a ton of on-screen elements that you need to press. We also have the ability to map any USB or Bluetooth connected controller with the same UI, and it works well, but it could use some improvements. The only thing that doesn't work that well right now is the right analog stick mapping for games that have a 3D camera. You don't have the ability to change the sensitivity on this, and it is set rather low by default. This should be an easy fix for them, and I have to assume that this is on their radar. The next good thing about this platform is it has robust CPU and GPU control with a set of profiles that you can switch between when you are in a game. These are great because you'll usually find that some demanding games will not be able to use all of the power that you have in your mobile chip. This could be due to a lot of things, but our power profiles allow us to ignore all of that and give the game as much power as we have. I have 2 games to showcase what this does. Our first is Minecraft Java Edition. I'm going to set this to 6 chunks just so we can see the benefit a bit better. I'm standing on a pillar of dirt just so we have a bigger view of the surrounding area, and I'm currently using the balance profile. Let's go up to the Rise profile, which was our older max profile that we had available like this. Our CPU is at 2.7 gigahertz and our GPU is at 231 megahertz. Typically, your GPU clock will be lagging behind in situations like this. The CPU is usually fine no matter which profile you use. As I mentioned, we now have easy access to that Diablo mode, and that will lock our CPU and GPU clocks to the max frequency possible. Once we do that, we can see that our FPS goes up significantly. This kind of improvement is similar to what you'll see in other situations. It's not always like a 2x improvement, but it is a meaningful one, especially in situations where you would be outgunned by older Snapdragon chips running on rooted phones. Now it's time to take a look at some benchmarks of the Red Magic 9 versus the Red Magic 8S Pro. I wanted to start with 3D Mark because they have a test that uses ray tracing, and this chip supports ray tracing just like the last generation. But this software build seems to be blocking 3D Mark from being able to download any of the additional tests that it needs. I've seen this on some Xiaomi phones, but I've never seen it on one from this company. Anyway, on what would be the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 2, we get a score of 5660. If the RM9 wasn't having issues right now, it would score around 9000 for this test, which is a huge jump in GPU performance for this generation. Next up, we have Geekbench. I started with Geekbench 5 for this, and our CPU scores show a decent improvement in single-core and multi-core performance. Unfortunately, the GPU test crashed on this new phone, so I don't have that data, but I was able to run all of the Geekbench 6 tests between both phones, and this is what I got. As to be expected from the estimated 3D Mark jump, we have a sizable performance bump in CPU and GPU performance with this new Snapdragon processor. That's enough on the hardware and software improvements with this chip and this device. Let's now jump into some performance showcases, and I'm going to start with Android games. I picked a collection of games that have native controller support, as well as others that need to use built-in mapping software. I also grabbed a few USB Type-C controllers for this with different features. You can find links to all of the hardware showcased in this video down below. For each of the titles in this section, I went into the graphics options and tried to max them out as much as possible. For some games, this device is locked out of those higher end options because I think they're exclusive to certain phones, but this is what we get.
Down! Contact with enemy! Target's in sight! Enemy down! Contact with enemy! Target down! Objective almost.
To wrap up this video, we will showcase some emulation performance. When it comes to Android, our hardware has outpaced some of the emulation development at this point, and there are not a lot of opportunities for us to push the hardware to the limits. Switch emulation is currently the peak of what's possible in this platform, and I would expect that this chip would be powerful enough to play the entire library of games when the software is more fleshed out. As it stands right now, there are some driver issues for Switch emulation on this chip that will improve in the future, but PlayStation 2 and 3DS are great.
Squirts start coming out of the woodwork.
Okay, the enemy's focus is on him. Everyone remember where we're meeting up? No worries, I can guide you.
Stop right there!
Get away!
Comparing power. Get him,
That's it!
Voice to murder his king and usurp his throne. You started this war, plunged Skyrim into chaos, and now the Empire is going to put you down and restore the peace.
That's going to wrap up things on this big showcase of the Red Magic 9 Pro and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. I'm impressed with the performance of this new Snapdragon chip. This is a decent bump in performance over the 8 Gen 2, and I hope that we'll see more games and emulators that can utilize the additional power that we have. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps out, and I'll catch you here next time with another one. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.